North
Neighbors knew each
Carolina.
other. Children played outside,
Yeah, I used to work
and
with
the
the
crime was
girl,
rare.
Auntie in
That
Lawndale.
quiet community became the center of one of the most valuable disappearance cases in American history. In the early hours
Yeah,
of a cold, stormy morning, a 9-year-old girl left her home in rural North Carolina
Lawndale,
and
North
disappeared into
Carolina.
the darkness. More than
Asa
25
degree.
years later, investigators still cannot explain
Yeah, I used to work
exactly
with her
why she
auntie.
walked away. No
Yeah, she
confirmed
left on a
motive,
stormy
no
night.
definitive suspect, no. And yet, despite decades of uncertainty, the case of Usher Degree has never faded
It's
from
Asa
public memory.
degree, not Usher.
Because unlike many missing children, Usher did not vanish from a
Yeah, she looks
playground,
just like
a
her aunt.
shopping mall, or found. Usher Jacquilla Degree was born on 1990 and grew up. She lived with her parents, Harry and her older brother, O'Brien. By all accounts, Ash's life was ordinary. The Degree
I
family
know
was
down.
close-knit, hardworking, and deeply involved in their church. Friends and relatives consistently described the home as
Yeah,
stable and loving. Unlike many missing child
Shelby,
cases,
North Carolina.
investigators never uncovered evidence of abuse,
Yeah,
neglect, or serious conflict inside the
yeah, she
household.
just vanished.
Usher
Left
was
out on the
known
rain that
as a
stormy
quiet
night.
and respectful child. She enjoyed
9 years
basketball,
old.
spending time with
Ain't never
family,
been
and
found.
attending school. She was not considered rebellious. She had never run away before. In fact,
Mom
people
got
who
up and
knew
getting
her
ready for
often
school.
described her as
And
cautious.
little brother went,
One
big brother
detail
went in
frequently
there,
mentioned
and she
by
wasn't
family
in the
members
room.
was her fear of dogs. Another was her fear of the dark,
Yep.
which makes what happened next even more difficult to understand. On February 13th, 2000, the day before she disappeared, nothing seemed unusual. Usha attended church. She spent time with relatives. She watched television at home. Later that
Yeah.
evening, a storm moved across the area, bringing heavy rain and strong
She
winds.
left that
The weather
same
was
night.
bad enough that
A
electrical
storm
power
night.
briefly went out in the neighborhood. Inside the Degree home, the
Yeah,
family
that's
settled
messed
in
up.
for
They
the
ain't
night.
found her
At
yet.
approximately 8:30 p.m., Usha and her brother went to bed. No one realized it would be the last time they would see her. Sometime after midnight,
Yeah.
Harold Degree checked on his children. Both appeared to be asleep. Nothing seemed out of place. Hours later, however, something changed.
9 years old and they ain't been
Investigators
found
believe
yet.
that sometime between approximately 2:30 and 3 a.m., Usha got out of bed,
They
packed a small bag, and
had
quietly
left.
left the house. She did not wake her brother. She did not wake her parents. She simply walked out the door and into the
Yeah,
storm.
that's messed
What
up.
happened next would become one of
They
the
found a
strangest
bag and said
sequences
that
of
they found
events
the
in modern
building.
missing person history. Because
Yeah.
unlike many disappearances, investigators were able to establish that Usha was alive after leaving home. Several motorists reported seeing
Seen
a
her
young
walking.
girl walking alone along Highway 18 during the early morning hours.
Yep, I used to travel that
One
road to
truck
go to
driver
work.
later told investigators he became so concerned that he turned his vehicle around to check on
And
her.
she ran.
When he approached, the child ran off the roadside and disappeared into a wooded area. That sighting remains one of the last confirmed observations
Yep.
of Usha Degree alive. The timing is critical. If the witnesses were correct, Usha had already
I
traveled more
moved to
than a
Shelby in
mile from her home on foot, alone,
2011.
during heavy rain and dark. For investigators, that raised an
Yeah,
entirely
for a
new
job,
mystery.
man.
Usha had not been forced from her house. She appeared to have left intentionally.
Shelby's like a
But
little,
why?
Lawndale like a
Nothing in
little
her
small
background
town.
provided an obvious explanation. She had no history of
Yeah.
running away, no known plans, no known
I used to
conflicts,
work in
no known
Lawndale
reason to be
with her
walking
aunt.
down a rural highway before dawn. And yet, witnesses placed her when her family
She
discovered
got
she was
missing.
missing later
Yeah.
that morning. Panic spread quickly. Within hours, police officers,
Yeah, family
neighbors,
cool.
volunteers, search dogs, and
But they
investigators
still
were
ain't found her
combing the
yet.
area.
No body
The
or
search would
nothing.
become one of the largest missing child operations in North Carolina
For
history.
real.
But despite thousands of hours of effort, almost nothing was found, at least not at first, because within days, investigators would discover a series of clues hidden near the
They
location
found
where
a
Usha was
backpack.
last seen. clues that would only make the mystery even stranger. When the search began, investigators expected to find answers quickly.
Parents ain't getting
Usher
no
Degree
clothes or
had
nothing.
vanished from a
They
relatively
ain't find
small
nobody
community.
or her.
Multiple witnesses had seen her walking along Highway 80. Search teams knew the
Yep, I
general
used to travel
area
down that
where
road to
she
go
had
to
last
work.
been observed. It seemed reasonable to believe that someone
Yeah.
would find a trail. Instead, the search produced something far more frustrating. Fragments, tiny pieces of
But
a
how a
story that
9-year-old
refused to come together.
gonna get up?
By
She's
the
scared of the
afternoon of
lightning,
February 14th,
scared of the dark,
hundreds of volunteers were helping law
and
enforcement
just get
comb
up
the area around
like
Shelby.
later in the night
Family members, neighbors, church members, police
and wander
officers,
off
and
and don't be
investigators
seen
searched
no more.
fields, roadsides,
But like I
wooded
say,
areas, and
something
drainage
else is
ditches.
something.
Hours turned into days,
Somebody knows
but there
something.
was still no sign of Usha. Then,
Her name
on
is Asia
February
Degree.
15th, investigators discovered something unusual. Near the stretch of Highway 80
Yeah.
where witnesses had reported seeing Usha, searchers examined a small storage shed belonging to a local business. Inside, they found
A front
several
of home.
items: candy wrappers, a pencil, a green marker, a
That
yellow
was her
hair
bag.
bow. According to investigators, some of these items were later identified as belonging to Usha. The discovery immediately changed
Asia
the
Degree,
direction
not
of the
Usha.
investigation. For the first time, there was physical evidence suggesting Usha had reached the area where witnesses said she had been seen. But the shed raised more questions than it answered. Why had she entered it?
Yeah.
Was she hiding from the storm? Was she frightened by one of the motorists who stopped to check on her? Or had she been waiting for someone? No one knew. And then investigators found their item, a wallet-sized photograph of an unidentified young girl. The picture was discovered among the items inside the shed. At first, investigators believed it might be an important lead. But the Degree family did not recognize the child. And
Another
years
missing
later,
girl.
the significance of the photograph remained unclear. The image became one of the strangest pieces of evidence in the entire case. Who was the girl? How did the photograph end up there? Was it connected to Ash's disappearance at all? Or was it simply a coincidence that happened to be found in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Yeah, it was some
The
white
questions
folks.
lingered for
They
years.
work at
Meanwhile,
got a front of
investigators
home
continued
in
reconstructing
Lawndale, North
Ash's final
Carolina.
known movements. The more they learned
Yeah.
about her, the stranger the case became. Usha was not known to be rebellious. She had not packed for a long trip. There was no evidence of family conflict, no signs of
You know, her
forced
family
entry,
was cool.
no indication
Like I say,
that anyone had
used
to
with
the
an
home
auntie,
and
worked
taken
with an
her.
auntie,
According to investigators,
seen her
she appeared
moms,
to have left voluntarily,
her family.
but voluntary
Yeah.
did not necessarily mean
Tops. I used to
alone.
eat down,
As
go to
weeks
that
turned into
restaurant where
months,
they
several
tops.
theories emerged. One possibility was that someone had groomed Usha beforehand. Perhaps someone she trusted had convinced her to leave the house for a
Yeah,
secret
that's what I'm
meeting.
kind of thinking.
Another possibility was that she left for reasons investigators still
Yeah.
did not understand and later encountered the wrong person. Neither theory could be proven, and every passing day made finding answers more difficult. The search gradually expanded beyond Shelby. The FBI became involved. National missing child organizations joined the effort. Ash's photograph appeared on television programs across the country. Her family gave interviews. Her mother and father refused to stop searching.
Yep.
But despite all of that attention, the investigation remained stuck. There was no confirmed suspect, no confirmed abduction, and no confirmed destination. Only a 9-year-old girl who had
Missing.
somehow disappeared after walking into a storm. Then, nearly 18 months later, the case took another dramatic turn. In August 2001, construction workers were clearing land in Burke County, approximately 26 miles north of where Usha had last been seen. While working near a construction site, one of the workers uncovered something buried in the ground. It was a backpack. The
Her
discovery
backpack.
immediately caught attention because the backpack had been deliberately concealed. According to investigators, it had been wrapped inside plastic bags before being buried. When authorities examined the contents, they made a shocking discovery.
Yeah,
The
they found her
backpack
bag.
belonged to Usha Degree. For the first time since February 2000, investigators had recovered a major piece of physical evidence. But instead of solving the mystery, the backpack deepened it. How had it traveled more than 20 miles from Shelby? Who buried it? And why?
She's 35
Inside were
years
several
old.
items that investigators considered extremely
Missing
important.
26 years.
Among them was a copy of McElligot's pool, a children's book by Dr.
Yep, that
Seuss
was
that
her
had
book.
come from Ash's school library. There was also a New Kids on the Block t-shirt.
Yep, that old
Neither
school
item
shirt.
was known to belong to her disappearance. To experienced investigators, that detail mattered. The presence of unfamiliar objects suggested the possibility that Usha had come into contact with someone after leaving home. Someone who may have given her those items, or someone who possessed
She was
them
a pretty
already.
little girl.
Years later, law enforcement would
But
publicly
it's
release
messed up.
photographs of
They ain't
both
found it
objects,
yet.
hoping someone would recognize them and provide the missing piece of the puzzle. But once again,
Yeah.
no definitive answers emerged. The backpack became both the most important clue in the case and one of its greatest mysteries, because if someone had intentionally buried it, that suggested planning, and planning suggested
That was
involvement
buried.
by another person. For investigators, one conclusion became
Yeah, who buried
increasingly
that bag and
difficult to
shit. They had
avoid.
something to do with that.
Whatever had happened to Usha after she left Highway 18, she likely did not remain alone for long. And yet, despite years of investigation, no one could prove who that person was. By the 20th anniversary of her disappearance, the case had generated hundreds of leads, multiple FBI reviews, national media attention, and one of the largest missing child investigations in North Carolina history. Still, the central mystery remained untouched. Why did Usha leave? And who was waiting for her in the darkness? Most missing child cases grow colder with time. Witnesses forget details. Physical evidence disappears. Leads dry up. Eventually, the investigation shrinks until only a few detectives remain assigned to it. That never happened with Usha Degree. Years passed. Then decades, yet every February, her photograph returned to television screens across North Carolina. Every anniversary brought renewed searches, renewed interviews, and renewed hope that someone, somewhere, was still holding the missing piece of the puzzle. For Ash's parents, Harold
and I seen the picture on the billboard going to work, and I got them a job and
their
shit.
daughter was still missing, and
And
they
I
were
went to
still
her
waiting.
aunt, ain't know that was
As investigators
her
reviewed
niece.
the case over the
I
years,
said, yo, you look just like
one
this girl
conclusion
on
became
the
increasingly
billboard
clear.
coming
They
towards
no
work.
longer believed Usha was a typical runaway.
And she said
The
that was
evidence
she
simply
said
did not
that was her
fit.
niece.
Usha was 9 years
I said,
old.
damn.
She left behind nearly everything that mattered to her. She disappeared during a cold, stormy night. There was no indication she had planned to start a new life.
That's sad.
No evidence she had arranged transportation, and no history suggesting she would
Shelby,
voluntarily
North
abandon
Carolina,
her family.
Lawndale, where she was staying.
The question was no longer whether something terrible had happened. The question was when, and who was responsible. One of the most significant
The white
developments
folks that day
came from witness statements that had existed for years, but gained new importance as investigators re-examined the case. Multiple reports suggested that around the time Usha disappeared, a young girl matching her description may have been seen entering or being pulled into a green vehicle along Highway 18. Investigators later focused on the possibility that the vehicle was a green sedan similar to a Lincoln Thunderbird or a comparable model. For years, that lead seemed impossible to verify. Then technology began catching up with the case. Advances in forensic science allowed investigators to re-examine evidence recovered from Ash's backpack. What once appeared to be a dead end suddenly became one of the most important developments in the investigation. In 2024, authorities executed a series of search warrants connected to a local family that had never publicly been associated with Ash's disappearance before. Investigators searched homes, vehicles,
I think they used to work at the nursing home.
Devices,
they own the nursing home.
Connected to Roy and Connie Dedman and members of their family. The searches immediately generated headlines across the country. For the first time in years, the case appeared to be moving. Court documents revealed that DNA recovered from items connected to Ash's backpack had led investigators toward new individuals. One of the forensic links involved Anneli Dedman Ramirez, who had been a teenager at the time of Ash's disappearance. Another involved Russell Bradley Underhill, a man who later died in 2004 and who had connections to facilities operated by the Dedman family. The revelations stunned many people who had followed the case for decades. Until then, most theories had focused on strangers, truck drivers, or unknown predators. Now investigators appeared to be pursuing a very different direction. Authorities also seized and examined a green vehicle associated with the family. Detectives noted similarities between that vehicle and descriptions that had circulated for years in connection with witness reports from Highway 18. Still, investigators were careful. Search warrants are not convictions. Evidence is not proof of guilt. And despite the dramatic developments, no one had been charged with Asha's disappearance. Yet the language used by investigators had changed significantly. For years, officials spoke cautiously about possibilities. Now, court records revealed something much stronger.
Now check this out.
Investigators stated that they believed Asha Degree was the victim of a homicide and that her body had been concealed. It was one of the most significant public statements ever made in the case. For her family, it was devastating. For 25 years, hope had remained alive. As long as there was uncertainty, there was always the possibility that
I used to
Usher
travel
might
down there
somehow
where I used to
still
go to
be out
work.
there.
No matter how Aisha left home, the fact does remain. She was only this 9-year-old little girl. Someone else likely had to play a role in what happened to her. It's the heartbreaking reality for her parents, Aquila and Harold Degree. They have had to deal with this agony every single day for the last 23 years. Over the years, we've sat down with the Degree family as they endlessly search for answers. And this year, we wanted to learn more about who Aisha was, her personality, her hobbies, and interests.
The child go missing.
Greg Simpson used his camera to show us who Shelby's sweetheart was.
That is heartbreaking. For real.
We're just going to continue to search. We're going to give up till she's back.
I can't imagine. Nah.
And we get it out, and I want to keep it out so nobody forgets in case somebody never thought it would be 23 years. 23 years ago when this happened,
2 years ago she made that.
Still be 23 years later and we know nothing.
Damn, the sad, yo.
Happy kid. She, like her dad, she's quiet. She was quiet, liked everybody. She didn't like some stuff. She didn't like cheerleading. Certain foods she didn't like, but she got along with everybody. And she always wanted everybody to get along.
Yeah. That's sad, bro.
If she thought you was mad at her, she'd give you the shirt off her back if she had to so you wouldn't.
I ain't know what I'd do if something happened to my kids
to death.
At that age.
She loved her brother to death. She thought Harold hung the moon. And her brother, I didn't allow them to argue, so they would get mad at each other, but they couldn't say. She would always say she did something to make her laugh. Everybody